In this video, we're just going to go through a few more examples of equivalent ratios, and these are from question 2 of the exercise that you were to complete. So let's look at the first question. What we're trying to do is find the equivalent ratio to this particular ratio here, 2 to 3. Now what I like to do is I prefer to actually write the ratios one on top of each other. It helps me try and figure out what the process is to make the equivalent ratio. So for example, what we have here is we want to be able to have the equivalency of this. So I'm actually going to write this under here. So 8 to blank. Okay, so now what I'm going to ask myself is, how do I get from 2 to 8? It's a really similar process to when we do equivalent fractions, and we can only do by multiplying or dividing. So to get from 2 to 8, I know that I can multiply by 4. So 2 times 4 gives me 8. So same with fractions, what you do on one side, you've got to do on the other side. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to multiply by 4. And 3 times 4 is 12. Perfect. So 2 times 4 is 8, 3 times 4 is 12, so the equivalent ratio is 8 to 12. Let's do the next one. So we have the ratio 1 to 5, and I want to find the equivalent ratio to this. So again, like I said, I prefer to write them on top of each other so that I can see more clearly what the process is. So if I see here, I need to figure out how we get from 1 to 2 by multiplying or dividing. And I know that if I multiply 1 by 2, I get the answer 2. So what I do on one side, I've got to do on the other side. So 5 times 2 is 10. So the equivalent ratio from 1 to 5 is 2 to 10. Alright, let's do C. So the ratio is 3 to 5. And I want to know the equivalent ratio. This time I don't know what the first one is. And we have our ratio sign. And it's something to 15. So how do we get from 5 to 15? Because those are the two that we know. Well, I know that I can multiply 5 by 3 to get 15. So what I do on one side, I've got to do on the other side. So I'm going to multiply 3 by 3, which gives me 9. So the equivalent ratio here is 9. Let's do D. So again, we're going to write these above each other. And this time I need to figure out how I go from 7 to 35. So 7 times what would give me 35? 7 times 5. So if I multiply by 5 on one side, I've got to multiply by 5 on the other side. So 5 times 4 is 20 to 35. Let's go to E. So 20 to something is an equivalent ratio to 5 to 8. So again, I've got to figure out how I go from 5 to 20. There's a few ways to figure this out. What you could do is actually write out your 5 times tables, and once you get to 20, we can work that out. So let's do that. That's our first process. So we could actually do 5, 10, 15, 20. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So I know we've got to multiply by 4. The other process that you could use is to do 20 divided by 5. And if you know that, or if you want to use your calculator to do that, you'll get the answer 4. So you know that you've got to multiply the 5 by 4 to get 20. So let's go back to our question. So we need to multiply by 4. So we've got to do the same on the other side. So 8 times 4. So think about your times tables, and again, you can use your calculator if you'd like. So 8 times 4 equals 32. Okay, so the equivalent ratio here is 20 to 32. Let's do the last question. So again, we go 49, and we've got to find the equivalent ratio to that. So what we've got to figure out is, how do we go from 7 to 49? What can we multiply to get that number? So again, you can write out your 7 times tables, or you could do 49 divided by 7, and that will give you 7. So we're actually multiplying 7 by 7 to get 49. So what we do on one side, we've got to do on the other. So 12 times 7 equals 84. So the equivalent ratio here is 84. So what you need to do for each of the processes is first find what the process is for the equivalent side of the ratio that you already know. And then once you figure that out, you've got to apply it to the other side, and that will give you the equivalent ratio. It's very similar to the process we use for equivalent fractions. There's 2 processes to find that, or strategies. One is to write out your times tables like we did here, or you could use division to find out what is that number that we're multiplying or dividing by.